Well, Highguard came out, and let me tell you, it is about what I expected. So the first thing I saw about Highguard before even playing it, because I had stuff to do, so I had to wait like the majority of the day to play it, was just everyone talking about how mid it was at best, and it really was just what a lot of people expected. And so before I give my take, I kind of wanted to give you a state of the union when it comes to Highguard, a state of the game a day after it came out, and that is by looking at the Steam page. So now looking at the Steam page, as you can see, a lot of red here, a lot of red here. A lot of people not really liking the game, and we look at the actual percentage of the reviews, mostly negative. Now I will say, yesterday it was overwhelmingly negative. So at some point the game did get better, and the game got a lot more, or a lot more positivity. Well, a good amount more positivity. I wouldn't say a lot more, but like it's not terribly negative now. And so this has to go down as probably one of the biggest just flops in terms of industry attempts at hyping around it compared to actual hype around the game than actual performance on release. Because once again, this game was what Jeff Keighley like let be the final game at the Game Awards, usually what's supposed to be the biggest thing of the day, the biggest reveal of the day, and just it flopped on just not even like birth. It just flopped before it was even out of the womb, where no one really had any expectations for it at all. And so I will say, I'm going to talk about my kind of view of the game now that I've played it, and I will be entirely honest. I did play 2 games. And I'll let you know now that one game would have been enough for me, but I gave it a second game just to see if I actually liked it. And I'm going to be entirely honest. I think I had the most fun playing this game in the tutorial. And the reason why I had fun in the tutorial is because I was just kind of fucking around. I was like shooting at the shopkeeper. There really wasn't anything for me to do, and there's really low stakes. But when you get to the actual like gameplay part of the game, it just kind of feels like empty. I think a big issue with this game is the size of the map compared to the amount of people in that map. Like the map is just absolutely massive for a 3v3 game mode. Like it should not be as big as it is with that little people, because it kind of feels like it's just empty for most of the game. And a lot of the game kind of, you go farming, you get the materials, and you buy shit, you make yourself better, you reinforce your base a little bit, which like every single game I've played, no one has reinforced it past like the beginning of the game when you are kind of forced to because you have nothing else to do. But past that point, reinforcement really didn't do much. And like the way the gameplay felt, especially just with that little amount of people, is that you kind of had to move to pack at 3v3 once you got to the middle of the map. Because basically the combat like rotation just went, all right, you fight over like a supply drop or a neutral kind of like area of resources. Then you fight at the storm break or the shield breaker, the sword. Then you fight like once more on the way, and then you're sieging them. And so like it feels like it's kind of just like a scripted game. And there's not really a lot of skirmishes on the outside of just like fighting over legitimate objectives. And I think that just kind of has to happen because of the fact that it is 3v3. Because you don't want to leave your team down a man while trying to get resources on the opposite side of the map in them. And like, I don't think you also want to like make it so that it's just 1v1s, and then whoever has the best 1v1 or just fucking wins the game, or the best like one-on-one gunfighters wins the game. So I feel like a big issue with this game is just like it kind of just being like very linear and kind of very easy to expect what happens in the game could have easily have been fixed if you just didn't make it a 3v3, because it just feels empty and it feels like you have to just fight over specific things, or else like you just cannot win the game in any capacity. And another issue I have with the game too, which like is kind of like a nitpicky thing, and a lot of this is just my personal issues with the game, is that the sieging mechanic doesn't really make sense, because you're punished for sieging too, because you get like 30 of their 100 health off of sieging, and then if you fail the siege, you lose 30 HP. And so I feel like you just have to stall until you're guaranteed to siege, or you're guaranteed to like blow up a bomb, or else it's like objectively worse to just push an enemy's base and then have to be forced to break into their area, especially when like once the shield is picked up, there's a time limit. You go into overtime, so you were forced to at some point have to siege them, and then because of that, you could just like lose HP on your own part because you're not ready to siege them, which is kind of like an annoying thing. And then the second thing about the sieging is that there's like the dome breaker or whatever that you can put on the side of the back of the dome and like have a second entrance that just was not explained in the tutorial in any capacity. Maybe it was in the advanced tutorial, but you would assume that like if that's such a vital mechanic and a vital thing to be able to do in the game, it would explain to you how to get those things in the tutorial. But like I just like the first time I ever experienced this was in the second game that I played, where just I was randomly getting attacked from behind. I was getting backshotted by people just who were breaking in the back of the dome, and I didn't know how they did it. Because even in that game, we got a siege in ourselves, and I would have loved to have known how to bring a dome breaker into the area, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to get it, and I didn't know how it worked. And so the tutorial probably should have explained that like kind of very useful resource to the player in the tutorial, but it just didn't. So you kind of have to be just left winging it. And another thing too is like the game kind of just feels like, and it obviously was very clearly made by the developers of Apex Legends. Like the HUD looks almost exactly the same as Apex Legends. You know, the gameplay, the gunplay, the movement kind of feels like exactly similar too, which like it's fine. I feel like a lot of people, you know, like the gunplay and the movement of Apex Legends, so like that really wasn't a terrible part. It was kind of just like, wow, I'm playing a different reskinned game mode of Apex Legends. And another issue I had too with the ults and like the brief interaction I had with the ults, but this is something that they could fix. Is that it seemed like some ults were significantly more useful than other ones. Like I was playing the first game I played, I was playing the tree one. We could like throw out a tree and they like throw bombs or whatever, and I used those in fights, and it felt like they didn't do anything at all. Like the people who would be fighting would be directly next to like my little tree walker thingy, and it just would stand AFK and not do anything. But then the second game I played, I was in a gunfight. This dude was about to lose, and then he just ults and turns into a giant like ice oni that like I unload maybe 4 full mags into him, and he doesn't die. He doesn't get out of his ult, and like he just kills me with it. So I don't understand like the difference between those two. I feel like one of those is significantly better than the other, and maybe I just didn't understand how the tree worked, but I just said like it threw bombs at them and everything. And so like that kind of didn't really make too much sense. And so like that kind of felt like there were some unequal distributions of the ability of the ults, and like maybe it's just a game understanding from my point, which is entirely possible. But if it just instantaneously feels that unfair, I feel like it's gonna turn a lot of people off from playing the game, especially like when you know you have to kind of just go and eye test yourself for how stuff works and how to like counter it by playing the game. And then like obviously the game has like all the classic like live service things like a battle pass that's like a shop and stuff that you can buy. Which like at that point you can't even knock a game for having it because that's just how every game ever will exist now with having that type of stuff. So like I wasn't surprised to see that. It was kind of whatever. And maybe like you know the cosmetics will be really cool in the game, but like I feel like I will not be spending any money on this game. And like I think conceptually the game kind of could be good. I think just especially with how negative the reputation of the game had going, you know, into it just from the game award situation and people really not liking it just before even playing the game. Having like such a fundamental aspect of your game being 3v3, but just it kind of having like a map that's just like 20 times too big for a 3v3 just makes the gameplay like just so much worse than it needs to be. I feel like the game would maybe survive if it was like semi-perfect on release. Like if it wasn't just if it didn't have such glaringly bad issues of gameplay on a fundamental level from release, especially too with the 3v3 thing and the map size. Like they gave you mounts, so they understand the map is fucking huge, and they still didn't consider that maybe we need to add more people to each side of the gameplay. And I feel like that's something like that should have been understood in playtesting or like understanding like I don't know if they QA tested or if they let people play test and give their feedback. But like that just feels like a massive issue to have. Where it just kind of feels like you're doing nothing for the majority of the game, and then you're forced to fight around like 3 objectives about 3 or 4 times repeatedly in the game. And this is not just a me thing. I've seen like some people talk about it too, where like the direction of the audio and the distance that some people get recognized is kind of messy. There's a point in my second game that I was playing where it sounded like there was someone above me, like on a building to my left, and then they were maybe like 50 feet away from me. And so I don't know how that happened because all of the other 4 people on the map were to my right, and then the one person who was like apparently really close to me just wasn't there. Because I remember I like looked up the check and then I got gunned down from the person who was just not even close to me and not even near where I was looking or where like the audio was playing. So that's a kind of another big issue, especially like when you get to the siege part, because a lot of that just becomes you playing fucking Rainbow Six Siege, where you're defending your bombs, where like you need to know where people are and where people are attacking from, and if the audio just like kind of lies to you where they are, like distance wise and like direction wise, it kind of becomes a big issue where like half of the fundamental part of the game just is significantly more difficult than it needs to be. And also like on that siege part too, I remember that there's one turret thing that I just do not know what it did. Like you feel like you're told that you have the A and B bombs, you got to get those down, and then there's this third anomalous one that is just not explained to you in any capacity. And I have like it would feel like once again in the tutorial it would explain to you what that is and why you need to protect that one specifically and why it's different, but it just straight up doesn't tell you at all. And so like that's kind of just another shortcoming in the game explaining itself to you. You feel like once again you need to understand what everything is in your base to like properly strategize around protecting it and like making sure they don't get to it. But like because you don't know what the fuck it is, you kind of just have to accept that you'll figure it out at some point. And so obviously, I went into this game with very low expectations, and I think you can tell that I really wasn't disappointed. It was kind of about what I expected, and I just feel like this game kind of got fucked over by the hype that Jeff Keighley tried to get around it. And I'm not trying to hate on Jeff Keighley, because maybe he genuinely thought it was a good idea and a cool concept. It's just that the game kind of got screwed over, just situationally wise. And so I think they just had such massive expectations to live up to that they just flopped. And so I feel like a lot of the changes or the issues that I had that need to be changed can be changed in theory. The issue is I do not think the game's lifespan will be long enough where even if those changes are made, it will like be able to bring people back to the game. Especially when one of the big issues that people had is like a fundamental aspect of your game being 3v3, which in theory isn't hard to do or to change just by allowing more people into a match. But at the same time, that kind of makes you have to think that they had to completely rebalance the game around having more people in the map than the amount that there are. So, like, if they fix that, I feel like a lot of people would like it because it would change the pace of the game, kind of change the strategy where you're not just supposed to be a packet of animals like running around the map and fighting over specific objectives. You'll have more like roles, I guess, and more like jobs for people to do where they like go on the opposite side of the map, try to get neutral objectives like the supply drop in the one group for the shield breaker or whatever. But that has to like be changed soon, or no one's gonna play your game. And yeah, I hope. I mean, for the sake of the developers, maybe I hope they kind of fix it. I hope they make the game good because I feel bad for them getting screwed over in this way just with the hype around it. But that's really all I got to say for today. So thank you for watching. Hopefully, my commentary on it like was out of the same. And if you hate what I said, I'm sorry. You're allowed to enjoy the game. I just personally didn't. And so that's just how it is. That's just how it goes sometimes. But yeah, that's all I got. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.